So for our short crust pastry, what we're going to do, we're going to take 400 grams of all-purpose or plain flour and 200 grams of fat, and that fat can be all butter, it can be all lard. I'm using a mixture of 100 grams of lard and 100 grams of butter, and that's just come out of the fridge, so it's nice and cold, and we're going to cut that into cubes, and then we are going to work that into the flour. There's a pinch of salt in there as well. We work that into the flour with our hands. I prefer to do it that way. You can use a food processor, but short crust pastry, I find it's really easy to overwork it and then the pastry becomes tough. So work it in there with your fingers until we get a fine breadcrumb type consistency. Then we're going to add 5 tablespoons of cold water. And again, we're just going to mix that in with the spoon, and then we're going to bring that together with our hands. We're not making bread, so you do not need to knead it. If you do knead it, what you find is that the pastry becomes tough when you cook it, and that's the last thing we want. This should be a buttery, crumbly pastry. And then we just bring that all together with our hands. Again, can't stress enough, you do not need it, you just need to bring it together. All the hard work's done when you're making the fine breadcrumb type consistency. You want to make sure all that fat is incorporated, and then we bring it together into a ball and we put it into a bag or maybe some cling film or a saran wrap, and we put it in the fridge. And we're going to get this out of the fridge maybe around about half an hour before we need it. We want to work with cold pastry, not warm pastry, otherwise it's difficult to handle. So we're going to make the stuffing, and the first thing we're going to do is chop all the ingredients as listed. And I like to make this, because it's going into a pie, I wanted the stuffing to be fairly fine. If you're more used to a coarser stuffing, you can do that. So I chop the celery nice and fine. And then we make a start on the onion, and we get that chopped nice and fine as well. And then we're eventually going to get all this into the frying pan, where we've got some butter melted, and we're just going to fry the vegetables up for a few minutes first. And then when that's been in there for a minute or two, we're going to break the sausage meat in. I'm just using like a breakfast sausage. I think this sausage actually got some sage in it already, so that should be good. Sage and onion stuffing is always nice. Break it up into chunks, and then you've got to work it into the mixture, so there's no large chunks. You want that to break all the sausage meat down. Big piece of onion in there, we don't want that. And then once you've got all that broken down, you want to fry it in the pan for about 5 or 6 minutes until it starts to go a little bit brown on the edges. You don't want to burn it, but you certainly want to give it some colour, because all the colour, that's where you get the flavour, is from the colour. And then all we do is we put that from the pan into a bowl, and then add the dry ingredients. And the dry ingredients are breadcrumbs, apple, walnuts, orange zest, and a little bit of salt and pepper in there as well. And we're just going to throw that in and mix it all together. You can use your hands on this if you wish, or just give it a good mix. Make sure it's well combined, and that's it. That's the stuffing finished. Just leave that on one side now. So we're actually going to make I made my own cranberry sauce for this, and this is the first time I'd ever made cranberry sauce. I didn't really follow a recipe. I just had a quick look online, and there's plenty of natural pectin in cranberries, so you don't need to add any. So you could put this into a fruit processor, I guess, and chop it up, but I just sort of did it by hand. Chop them up, and you want to do equal amounts of cranberries to equal amounts of sugar. So in this case I used 200 grams of cranberries and I added 200 grams of sugar. And then literally all you got to do is add the zest of, you could use a lemon. I didn't have any lemons, so I used an orange, and I think cranberry and orange is a traditional combination. And really all we wanted is a little bit of flavour from the orange zest, and it's actually the acid in there, the citric acid, which helps release the pectin, which means it's going to go thick when it sets. So here you go, just grate the zest off there, and then get the orange juice in, and then all we're going to do is we're going to put this on the heat. Keep stirring while it's warming up, because you don't want to burn the sugar. But once the sugar starts to melt, we want a good vigorous boil, and I just roughly did it for, I would guess it was boiling for 5 or 6 minutes, and you can just tell when it starts to thicken naturally. It boils up and it just starts to go thick. So I made roughly 400 grams of fresh cranberry sauce. There was probably, or there is, too much for what I needed for the pie, but the good thing is I got a jar which I cleaned and sterilised and heated up with boiling water, and I just put the rest of the cranberry sauce into the jar, put a lid on it, waited till it cooled. That's in the refrigerator, that's waiting for Christmas. So once you've made all your components, it's time to assemble the pie. You need to take the pastry out of the refrigerator about 30 to 40 minutes before you need it, so it can just warm up a little bit. If you try and roll it when it's too cold, it's really difficult, and it splits a little bit. Make sure you've got a good clean floured surface, and flour your rolling pin, and you want to roll this pastry out. I don't worry about how thick it is. Just make sure it fits in the dish. I did add 50% extra to the recipe because I wanted to make sure there's plenty. I don't like messing around trying to make it fit perfectly. So I roll it out, and if there's excess, I just trim it off. So carefully fit the pastry into the pie dish, making sure that it's seated all the way to the bottom. We don't want any air gaps in there, because when you start to fill the pie, you're just going to tear the pastry. Assemble the pie first. I used a turkey crown. I didn't roast a full turkey. I was just making the turkey just for this pie. So I put a layer of turkey in first, and then a small layer of the stuffing. Again, we don't want to overpower any. We want all the ingredients to be tasted, so I didn't want to be too thick on any of these. And then the turkey gravy, which was made from the juices of the turkey, the crown that I roasted. And then the bacon, I didn't want to pre-cook the bacon because I didn't want it too hard, but I was conscious that it might be difficult to cut, so that's why I'm cutting the bacon up into pieces, so that I can take a guess when I'm slicing the pie where the centre line and the lines of the bacon would be. Then I put in another layer of the stuffing. I think I made just about enough. It was just enough there. And the cranberry sauce, there's not a lot of cranberry sauce on there, but it is a very powerful flavour, and you could definitely taste it in the final the final eating of the pie. So I think, again, be careful how much cranberry sauce you put in there. It's very sweet and very tart as well, so be careful. I use sweet potatoes and carrots for my vegetables, but as I said, you could use anything you want. You could use normal potatoes, you could use parsnips, I guess would be nice in there as well. I'm not sure about sprouts or anything like that, but whatever you like. And then another layer of turkey. When we were eating the turkey, I think I maybe sliced it a little bit too thick. So just be careful of that. You don't want to, get that turkey sliced as thinly as you can. Then I finished off with another layer of vegetables and some more of the gravy. Same procedure for the lid. Roll your pastry out, the remaining third that you've got. Again, it's probably going to be a little bit thicker, but I don't mind the lid being a bit thicker than the base. It's nice pastry, so it's worth tasting it. So once you've got the lid rolled out, you need to put an egg wash around the pastry on the base, so that we get a good seal and we don't get any of the juices spilling out and ruining the look of the pie. Carefully lift your lid on and then seal it around the edges. This is my favourite part of the process, is trimming the excess pastry off. It's a very rewarding process. And we seal all the way around the edges. I use the edge of a teaspoon, but you could use a fork or your hand, whatever, your fingers. And then once we've done that, we put the egg wash all over. This gives it a nice golden brown. If you don't put the egg wash on, you do run the risk of overcooking the pie, overcooking the pastry, because you try and get the golden brown, but without the egg wash it just takes so much longer, and then the pastry becomes tough. So the egg wash is really something you should put on there. And then I just put some holes in there to let the steam out. You can be decorative if you wish, but 3 holes just work fine. And then this needs to go into an oven at 350 Fahrenheit for around about 40 to 45 minutes. Because this was a very full pie, I decided to put it into a dish just to catch any juices that did flow out. There weren't actually any that came out, and after 30 minutes I took it out of that extra tray just so that I made sure that the base was well cooked. The results were fantastic. We were very pleased with it. As I said, the only thing I would do differently, I would have made sure that the turkey is sliced very thinly. But overall, for a first effort, I was delighted.